January 6th was an inside job. We're talking about January 6th, 2021 and all of the chaos that took place that day. Many suggest it was an inside job perpetrated perhaps by the left to hurt President Donald Trump. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about why January 6th even took place to begin with, and whether it was indeed Nancy Pelosi's failure to provide security, the FBI deliberately instigating the event along with Ray Epps and a host of other issues. Why did January 6th happen, and whether it was an inside job? What's up, folks? So I got a laundry list of topics. So this video may take a little bit because a lot of folks have said all sorts of different aspects of commentary in regards to that day, January 6, 2021. So what was it? President Trump referred to it as a peaceful day of protest that simply got out of hand. Therefore, he had nothing to do with it, as he did state, go peacefully and patriotically. Now, also there is the claim that Nancy Pelosi deliberately did not provide security for the event, and that could have prevented all of the chaos from happening to begin with, so Nancy Pelosi could be at fault. We'll talk about that. And of course, how the hell could there be an insurrection if nobody was armed? An insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the government with no armed patrons in attendance? How could that even make sense? We'll cover that. Also, as we stated, the FBI, Ray Epps, and other entities such as Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all being the culprits instigating the chaos that took place on that day. After all, many folks believe the protesters, or the whole January 6th event was simply comprised of peaceful protesters, and as I stated, it got out of hand due to the instigation of a few bad actors, Ray Epps, FBI, Black Lives Matter. We'll talk about all that. So, starting out right off the bat, why did January 6th even happen to begin with? At the end of the day, we generally have a peaceful transition of power. Today, January 6, 2025 is a perfect example. It hasn't happened before, so why did all that happen on January 6, 2021? Well, fact is, we do have a judicial process in this country, and that's where the problem began. President Trump believed that the election was stolen from him. He had won the election by a landslide, as he states, and various entities took the election or stole the election from him, and they were trying to certify what he believes was a fraudulent election. So right off the bat, I'm going to say that January 6th, the whole incident culminated from a failure to basically adhere to the judicial process. What do I mean? If you believe you were done wrong, you have a hell of a lot of options. First, you take it to court. Even if you lose in court and the court sides with the other side, you can file an appeal. You have a way to appeal what you didn't like in the lower court. And if that doesn't happen, if you're lucky, you may even be able to get it to go to the Supreme Court, where they may overturn everything and rule in your favor. That is our judicial process in this country. That's the process that President Trump himself was in charge of on January 6th. Unfortunately, President Trump went through all of those levels, did not get the answers he wanted, and refused to essentially let the process play out. They're not going to tell me what I want to hear, so I'm going to keep going. So that's what happened. Trump had dozens of court cases, dozens of judges rule against him, appeals not go his way in the Supreme Court, not even take his case, which some folks are really frustrated about that. Why the hell wouldn't the Supreme Court or some of these courts listen to what he had to present? That's the judicial process, folks. You realize how many individuals, how many law firms try to take their cases to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says your case is not worthy of our attention, our time? That's kind of the process. Now, Trump was demanding, well, perhaps maybe because I'm special, you shouldn't have that right to deny listening to my case. Because of who I am or what I'm claiming or the fact that it's an election, you no longer have the process, or better yet, the right to deny hearing my case. You must hear what I have to say. Now, that would be Trump trying to invoke some sort of privilege, but I brought that up because a hell of a lot of people do believe that the Supreme Court should have taken this case and surrendered their right to make that decision or not. So Trump went through the judicial process, did not like any of the decisions the courts made at any level, and decided he's going to go above and beyond that. Now, in America, there really is no above and beyond that. There really is none. So if you lose in court, you lose in the appeals court, and either you lose at the supreme level or they don't hear your case, which means it goes back down to the decision of the appeals court. That's it. President Trump just refused to accept that. So that's where all of this began, is that Trump refused to adhere to the judicial process and accept the fact that the courts ruled against him. He was going to hear a victorious verdict regardless of how the courts felt. I want to hear what I want to hear, and the hell with the courts. That's kind of what happened on January. So, okay, so now we're at the White House protesting, and it's simply due because Trump is not going to accept that he's lost. So why did it get out of hand? After all, he said go peacefully and patriotically, and Nancy Pelosi's job was to secure the event. Well, there's a few things you have to bring up. Now, no one has been searched or patted down. No one has a hand over a card that says, I am MAGA, I swear under oath. So you got a large crowd of people. You don't really know who is who represents what, because keep in mind, Trump is stating that everybody from Black Lives Matter to Antifa to the FBI Ray-ups, people that did not have his best interests is in that crowd. So when Trump stated to go to the Capitol building peacefully and patriotically, you have to question, why would you assume that folks that may not even have your best interests are going to go peacefully and patriotically? I don't know if they ever answered that, but if you admit that Ray-ups and BLM and Antifa and all these folks that do not favor you are in the crowd, why would you assume that they're just going to go peacefully and patriotically if they don't even like you? And there's no way to know for certain who's in the crowd. So I don't understand how he automatically assumed just telling a bunch of strangers to go peacefully and patriotically guaranteed they were going to do that. So what about Nancy Pelosi not providing security? Because at the end of the day, if that crowd had been secured, they would have been forced to go peacefully and patriotically, which is a legitimate argument. So why did Nancy Pelosi provide security? This is one that's a toss-up. It's in the air. Once again, Trump is saying it was her job. MAGA is saying it was her job. But then, of course, the January 6th Hearings Committee, which MAGA does not recognize, are saying it was not her job. I don't know enough to speak on that with conviction, because it's going both ways. Trump is saying one thing, but the committee is saying something else. But at the end of the day, everyone knew that event was not secure on that day, and there was no way to know who was in the crowd. We all know this is a totally unsecured crowd that has not been patted down. So I don't understand if it was Trump's goal to send them to the Capitol building and think, well, if something gets out of hand, we'll just blame Nancy Pelosi because she didn't provide security. Maybe. But I do see that as potentially negligent. You needed security ahead of time. You know the security is not there. Why continue on as normal? I'll leave that up for you guys in the comments. Why do you think he would have continued on as normal if he is 100% aware that the security he requested is not there? So we'll talk about that in the comments. But why were they there? What were they going to do when they went to the Capitol building? Because at the end of the day, Trump stated, it's not my fault. I said go peacefully and patriotically, and they just kind of got out of hand, and that should not be on me. A lot of folks agree with Trump on that, particularly MAGA. So what was the purpose of sending them to the Capitol building if they're going to go peacefully and patriotically. Just to have them stand on the steps. I would love to have someone in the comments answer that. Let's say they did take Trump's advice and go peacefully and patriotically. What would be the goal of that? They all are holding signs that say, "Stop the steal." How are you going to stop the steal by just standing there yelling when the people are inside the building continuing on with the process? So stop the steal and go peacefully and patriotically. I don't know how those things correlate, because for you to stop something, just the simple word stop means you are taking something that is ongoing or in motion and you're rendering it to a halt. That's how you stop something. So if they're saying stop the steal, you got to assume that the process taking place in the Capitol building is what is in motion. That's the steal, the smooth transition of power, the inauguration. That's what's in motion. And their intention to stop the steal is to stop that. Otherwise, how are they going to stop the steal? You can't just stand on the steps and stop anything. So once again, I'm still confused as to how go peacefully and patriotically was going to stop anything. I gotta say that it almost seems predictable that a bunch of folks with signs saying "Stop the steal" were not just going to go to the building and stand in place while the perception of a steal is happening inside the building. That makes no sense at all. They clearly are telling you they want to stop the steal. And what's being stolen is taking place inside the Capitol building. How are you going to stop it? By going peacefully and patriotically. So as far as I'm concerned, that did not make a lot of sense. Maybe you folks can educate me on how you can possibly stop something by going peacefully and patriotically and just standing on the steps. You absolutely have to break into the building to do that, to stop the steal, because it's not happening outside. You got to break into the building to do that. And there goes the peaceful and patriotic part. So somebody let me know about that. Now, once again, no insurrection, because nobody had weapons. This is something you often hear also. So it's not like they were going to really try to commit an act of insurrection. At the end of the day, nobody had any weapons. That's possible. But then again, that is also possibly untrue. Why do I say that? Nobody had been patted down or searched. You cannot just visually look at someone and be 100% certain they have no weapons on them. Even the police would tell you to keep your hands in sight, keep your hands out of your pocket. They don't know for certain if you have a weapon, but they do realize it's possible. Just because they can't see it doesn't mean you're not armed. So looking at the crowd on January 6th and just assuming that everybody's unarmed because you can't see any weapons is senseless. Your local police department will tell you that. So I don't know why people assume that everybody was unarmed. And then, of course, you can use other things other than firearms or weapons. People being bear sprayed, using flagpoles, things like that. I mean, taking a police helmet and bashing them over the head with a riot helmet. That helmet is suddenly a weapon. So the idea that nobody was armed doesn't, there's no evidence to that. Because you didn't pat anybody down. Nobody went through magnetometers or metal detectors. There's no way you could be certain of that. And then, of course, I don't want to keep referring to the January 6th hearings because a lot of folks don't favor that. But there is radio chatter from the Capitol Police on that very day with them over the radio stating that they could see firearms, people in trees that were armed and things like that. So we would also have to dismiss that. Now, in regards to the FBI, RAIPs, BLM, and other culprits being in the crowd instigating what happened, well, first of all, I already told you, from a standpoint of stop the steal, I don't think you need to really do any instigation at all. If they're going to stop the steal, they're going to have to take action in some way, fashion, or form that's going to involve getting inside of that building and basically stopping the process while it's ongoing. That's the only way you're going to stop the steal that's in progress, is to get in the building and stop it. So the FBI, Ray Epps, and BLM. Here's my take on Ray Epps. Trump stated in front of his crowd, go to the Capitol building peacefully and patriotically. The walk from where Trump gave his speech to the Capitol building is approximately 2 miles or so. In that 2-mile walk, the claim is that Ray Epps, who essentially nobody in the crowd knew from Adam, could convince the crowd to do the exact opposite of the very president they came to see and defend. Once again, I'm kind of baffled on that. You flew all the way out here to defend President Trump, defend the election in his favor. And when he says go peacefully and patriotically, the guy you came to defend, all it takes is a 2-mile walk with some dude you don't even fucking know. And you just deliberately go against everything the guy you came to defend told you. How could Ray Epps have that much power? How could one guy, or even let's say the FBI, because folks suggest the FBI or Antifa or whatever, how could these unknown individuals have that kind of power of persuasion? You've flown, drove, caught buses, bought hotels, took off work. You've done all that to defend Trump. Some people you don't know convinces you within a 2-mile walk to do just the opposite. Once again, in the comments, somebody explain to me how that works, or even if that makes sense. Because it does seem baffling that Ray Epps could have that much power. Now, the hearings and all that ruled that Ray Epps, it was overblown. I don't know. He sued Fox News. He sued on behalf of his name. They tossed his lawsuit out, but to this day, I don't see any solid evidence that Ray Epps should be responsible for essentially changing the hearts and minds of hundreds of people. Wow, listen, let me just say this. Even if Ray Epps is guilty of doing all of that, it would kind of make the assailants on January 6th look like sheep. You just followed the word of some guy you didn't know. You didn't have a mind to think of your own. You didn't listen to just this dude just showed up, and all you guys just decided let's commit crimes because he's telling us to. You don't even know what the fuck he is. I don't understand that. Anyhow, so last but not least, what I'm also baffled by is how this took place to begin with. Let's say the whole Stop the Steal movement to begin with. On January 6th, 2 months, 2 days after the election had taken place, the one that Biden is allegedly guilty of stealing, the fraudulent election, 2 months, 2 days. You got thousands of people showing up in Washington, D.C. There's no way within only 8 weeks, they had enough solid evidence to believe that Biden had did that. My theory is they were going solely off what they were being told. If you had grabbed the average protester on January 6th that day and asked them, why are you out here? Why are you stopping to steal? What evidence do you have it was stolen? Attorney General Barr, Trump's Attorney General, was still performing the investigation. They haven't even finished investigating this. So what evidence do you have concluded that would lead you to believe this is being stolen? Other than people you trust are telling you this. You don't have any solid evidence yet. No court has ruled that this is happening. I mean, I don't know if there was any Senate or congressman other than maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene that was saying Trump was correct. Most of the Republican Party, we're not talking about liberals at all in this shit. Most of the Republican Party was saying that Trump was incorrect. In fact, even now, very few Republicans in the Senate, House, Republican governors say Trump won the 2020 election. So this is essentially coming from Trump and members of his inner circle. That's it. And that was enough for folks to come out there and do. Now, even if the election was stolen, is it not wrong to ask for some solid evidence? I mean, we're 4 years out, and the evidence is still, there are things people bring up. Where was the 20 million votes? If people bring that up now. Here's the problem. We know Rudolph Giuliani lost a hell of a lot of money suggesting that Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss were cheating in a polling place in Atlanta or Georgia. We know that Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and other right-wing media outlets lost a hell of a lot of money suggesting that Dominion voting machine systems and Smartmatic, another company, were cheating on behalf of President Biden against Trump. The point I'm making is this. How do you know who is credible? A court of law has ruled multiple times that lies are coming from the right as well. So if you believe the election is stolen, you have to take in consideration the people that are telling you that have been found liable for lying in a court of law. So how does that not hurt their credibility at least somewhat? Or perhaps maybe you believe the entire system is lying and that only Trump and his close associates are telling the truth. Then if that's the case, I understand where you're coming from, but there's no win in that. I mean, if he can tell you something and provide little to no evidence, and there's not a court on earth that can counter it, then you're just blindly behind Trump. There's not much more we can say. But I do believe there should have been evidence provided, significant evidence, before people would show up and do what they did on January 6th. And 4 years out, it's pretty clear they did not have evidence. Now, before I close up on the video, and I knew it was going to go a little bit because there's a lot here. Before I close, the whole notion about the FBI Ray-ups and BLM or whatever the case may be, the instigators on January 6th. Has Trump said anything bad about January 6th? I mean, I've heard it was a love fest, peaceful protesters and all of that. I have to ask this question. If Ray-ups and BLM and Antifa and the FBI ruined his day of a peaceful why is he portraying it as such a positive day? Now, anytime you hear Trump, and I'm not talking about MAGA, I'm not talking about Republicans, I'm not talking about folks that participated there that day on January 6th. I'm talking about Trump. Anytime you hear him speak of January 6th, do you hear him actually accuse the FBI? Do you hear him actually accuse Ray-ups? Somebody let me know in the comments. I'm not sure I've ever seen him do it, but maybe you have. Trump personally accusing Ray-ups of instigating the chaos, personally accusing his own FBI, because he was in charge of the FBI on January 6th. Him personally accusing his own FBI of instigating the chaos. Has anybody seen Trump say this at a rally? Now, I know MAGA says it, but MAGA says a lot of things, and then Trump will come back later and say something totally different. So it's a big difference between what MAGA or Trump supporters or Republicans say versus him himself. I've only heard Trump speak positively of what happened there that day. So I would like to know, have you heard him say that? Last but not least, Nancy Pelosi as well. Here's the issue on that. If it's her job to provide the National Guard, how does the request go? Is it just word of mouth? I mean, if you need hundreds of National Guards, National Guardsmen to show up and secure an event, because, there was thousands of people there on January 6th. So Trump would have needed a few hundred guardsmen at least, if not more. Vehicles and all kinds of other stuff would have had to be there. Equipment, you're going to need barricades. All of that stuff's going to need to be there. The point I'm asking is this. That has to be in writing somewhere, right? You can't just make a phone call and say, secure my event. Well, how big is it? How many trucks is necessary? How many Hummers need, Humvees? What kind of weapons? I mean, you have to put that in writing, right? Wouldn't he have had to send an email or something? Now, if it's Nancy Pelosi's job to provide national security, and Trump requested that, shouldn't he be able to easily present the email he sent to her or sent to her associate or her assistant or somebody? You don't just make a phone call and demand military intervention, even at that low level, with no paper trail that has ever took place, right? Somebody had to receive that because that's got to be signed off on. So if Trump requested, then his request needs his signature. If it's Nancy Pelosi's job to provide it, then Nancy Pelosi's signature is going to be there somewhere also. Who requested the National Guardsman? Where is the paperwork? Where is the email? Where is the paper trail? Where's the recording of the phone call? Something. Now, the January 6th Hearings Committee is saying it's not Nancy Pelosi's fault or whatever the case. Fine, that's their side. People don't really give a damn of credibility to the January 6th Hearings Committee. I get that. But if you give credibility to Trump, he should be able to easily produce some evidence that he requested it. Where is that at? Has anybody seen that? Who did he call? Where's the email? Was it a letter? Was it an email? Something should have the presidential seal on it because he's essentially demanding military show up. You can't just say that without any evidence it was ever requested. Otherwise, if the military, let's say for instance, Nancy Pelosi knows that Trump is calling for this great event and she puts the National Guard there. They don't like folks yelling for the offering of Mike Pence or something like that. And they move in and roughhouse the crowd and some Trump supporters get injured or get hurt. And Trump steps up and says, I told you Nancy Pelosi is unpatriotic. She stepped in and tried to deliberately interfere with a peaceful First Amendment protest. And the military roughed up some of our people. The military had no damn right to be there. This is a peaceful protest. Where would be the evidence for Nancy Pelosi to present? No, I provided the military because he requested it. Otherwise, if it's just done with a phone call and there's no paper trail, then Trump could request the military. And then if they respond unfavorably to any of the supporters or the protesters, he could then claim that the left wanted to ruin this protest by sending overzealous, heavy-handed military. I'm bringing this up because there has to be a paper trail that the military was presented or was requested. And if Trump can't present that, it didn't happen. Let me know in the comments, folks. What the hell am I getting wrong? I'm sure there's some counters out there. But you got to admit there's a hell of a lot of questions to be answered based on what Trump and his supporters are saying on this. And last but not least, you got to let the judicial system lead the way. You got to adhere to the process. If everybody who walked out of court did not like the ruling and just continued on, what would be the purpose of having a judicial system to begin with? I don't give a damn what the courts say or how they rule. If they don't rule in my favor, this ain't over with. Then what's the purpose of having the courts to begin with? It's your boy Tim the Handsome Liberal. Feel free to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.